Sup nerds! Today I will give comments on my classmates' presentations. Now, these presentations were on units that we created based on a specific teaching method that was assigned to us. And the way in which I will provide these comments is by answering two questions. The first question is if I think that the unit reflects the method that was given to them, and the second is if I would use that specific method on my future practice. So, without much further ado, let's start with the first presentation on the lexical approach. The heavy focus on vocabulary and language chunks during the whole unit that was presented is a trademark feature of the approach. This implementation of the lexical approach is flawless and very pertinent to both the context and the content of the unit. Now, I am aware that language chunks and vocabulary items are a key part on learning the language, so I will be definitely using the features of this method in the future. Next, we have neurolinguistic programming. The biggest connection with the method and the classes is, I think, with the assessment, since it focuses on the main aspects of neurolinguistic programming, this being language patterns, metacognition, and the personalization of learning. Now, since neurolinguistic programming deals with brain functions, it has an innate relationship with learning, I think, so I am not sure if I have a choice on whether to use it or not. Rather, I think it's kind of baked into the teaching learning process. Next up, we have the presentation on Suggestopedia. Since this method is more about a setting in the class than actual strategies, it is kind of hard to convey it in a lesson plan. Still, the focus on communication, discussion, and an overall positive attitude reflects some the more overarching features of this method. Now, going to whether I would use it, I think I would definitely implement certain characteristics into my teaching, particularly the creation of a positive environment, since it is very important for learning. Next, we have the unit created around content-based instructions. The heavy focus on using the language as a means to learn about technology is extremely pertinent to content-based instruction. Additionally, the teaching of the real-life use of technologies creates a meaningful learning environment, not only about technology, but more importantly, about language. Now, I am quite partial towards using the language to teach some other topics, so I definitely see myself including this method into my future teaching practice. Up next, we have the unit created around the natural approach. The more intuitive acquisition of the language that the natural approach presents is very reflected in these classes, since the students are giving meaningful input through the functions that the students must replicate, well, in some way, which is very similar to how we learn languages naturally. Despite this, I am not sure if I would use the natural approach or any of its characteristics in my classes, mainly because of the total rejection of the mother tongue. Because I think that using the mother tongue as a support or something to fall back on, particularly with struggling students, helps them deter demotivation and fosters their learning, I think. Up next, we have task-based learning. The classes of this unit are very centered on the TBL model, since every class follows the pre-task, task, and post-task cycle to a T, including the introduction of the topic at the beginning, the monitoring in the middle, and the reflection and discussion at the end. So I think it is a very, very solid unit. And I am very keen on the TBL model. I find the fostering of 21st century skills very important in the teaching learning process, and TBL is a very good means to get there. So yes, I would definitely use it. Next, we have the unit designed around project-based learning. While the first half of this unit is quite conventional, it sets the foundations for the development of the project, which takes place during the second half of the unit. This focus on not only the project itself, but also the necessary skills to carry it out, is a textbook example of the PBL in practice. Now, I love PBL, so I am definitely using it in the future. Up next, we have the presentation created around the CLIL model, the Content and Language Integrated Learning. Being quite similar to the content-based instructions, only with a heavier emphasis on language, the implementation of CLEL in this unit is quite adequate, using technology as the main content for the unit. I think while it is not a very innovative use of the method, it works quite well. And very similarly to content-based instructions, I am a very adamant follower of CLEL for pretty much the same reason, so yes, I will be using it. Up next, we have the unit created around whole learning. Now, I am not very familiar with this teaching method, so I found this very interesting. Now, the integration of the language for meaningful communication is very coherently baked into the unit by using authentic texts to deliver language in a real life context. This, coupled with the development of critical thinking, makes for a very meaningful learning experience. Before this, I have never heard of this method, and I quite like the meaningful language use aspect of it, as well as the use of real texts. So I will be definitely using some aspects of it. Up next, we have the unit created around community language learning. The community aspect shines through this unit, implementing it quite effectively through class discussions, peer feedback, and group work activities. Additionally, the student-centered aspect that community language learning preaches is also very well used inside of the unit. Overall, I've really enjoyed this method, particularly the aspect of community building and how it benefits to the classroom ambiance. And last but certainly not least, we have the translanguaging method. This method is quite fascinating, and the implementation of it into the unit that was presented is very complete. The usage of both languages interchangeably is a very interesting feature of the unit, and it is very well used inside of the classroom. I am a bit put off by this method though, but I think it stems from ignorance as I am not very familiar with the inner workings of it. But I admit that I'm more keen to use this one rather than grammar translation method, so yes, this gets a pass. And that's it for the video. Thank you for listening to my ramblings, and I see you when I see you.